Hello guys, welcome to another edition to the 5 Minute Friday series, and in this episode we're going to be learning about the CSS nth-child pseudo class. Now the nth-child pseudo class has a direct relation to the parent and child analogy in CSS. Now this analogy relates to a parent element, which in this case in the UL on your screens, and this has three list items inside its parameters, and therefore these three list items are considered direct children elements, and that's where the analogy comes from. Now what the nth-child pseudo class allows you to do is select one or more elements based on their source order or according to a formula, which I'm going to show towards the end of the video. So the first thing we're going to be looking at, guys, is the even and odd keyword for the nth-child pseudo class. So we're inside VS Code, guys, and if we scroll down into the body, you can see we've got a UL with 6 list items inside. So going back to our parent and child analogy, the UL in this case is the parent, and the 6 list items inside its parameters are the child elements. So we're going to go inside the style sheet, and we've targeted all those list items and applied a pseudo class of the nth child to them. And then inside each of the values, I've got an even and then an odd keyword. Now the even and odd keyword for the nth child pseudo class is pretty self-explanatory. Using the keyword, you can start elements whose position is either an even or an odd number. So depending on how many child elements you have, these rules would apply to the even and odd items. So what I'm going to do is just apply a blue background color to the evens, and then a green background color to the odds. So you can see box 2, 4 and 6 have the background color of blue because in the source code they're all positioned in the even numbers, and then in the green you can see box 1, 3 and 5 now have that style of green because this is how they're positioned in the source code. Now the next thing we're going to be looking at, guys, is specifying a number so that you can select a specific child you want to style. Now when we specify a particular number, like 3 in this example, we're selecting the element in a list of siblings whose position matches the number we've just passed. So here we're targeting the third child of the unordered list, so you can imagine what the result would be. So if I add a background color of green, you can see box 3 now has the background color of green. But one thing you need to be careful and mindful of is that after specifying the element with a number, you're specifying the element which number is in the source code. So in our example, we're specifying the third list item in the UL, which styles the third box, but that's kind of to throw you off because remember, we're styling the third element in the source code. We're not actually trying to style box 3. So to demonstrate this further, I'm just going to add another list item. So I'm just going to duplicate box 1. You can see now the second box has the color because box 2 is now positioned third in the source code. So be mindful of that when you're selecting a number with the nth-child pseudo class. Alright guys, so now we're going to take it up a notch and start looking at formulas. Now this can be a little bit complicated for people, so I'm going to try and make it as simple and easy to understand for you guys. And then you guys can later on go and play around with these formulas once you have a more basic understanding. So in our first example, inside the brackets here, you can see we've got an AN value. Now the A represents the size of the cycle, and the N is the counter for our size, thus creating a sequence. So for example, if we pass a 2 in here, and then I'm just going to put a background color of green, we've now created a sequence of even, so we're going up in 2s. So let me go show you a slide to see how this works behind the scenes. So we have the exact same formula here as we did inside VS Code. So N in this case by default starts at 0, so 2 times 0 is 0, then 2 times 1 is 2, then 2 times 2 is 4, and so on and so on. So this is how the 2n formula works. For the AN plus B, all we're doing is pretty much just adding an extra calculation, which essentially works as the AN formula you see here, but adds on an extra amount. So what I'm going to do is just do 2n, and we're going to say plus 1, and then you could probably guess what this is going to be, but I'm going to give this a background color of red. And you see now all the odd numbers I now have the background color of red. So if we take another look at how this looks on paper behind the scenes, you can see it's doing 2 times n. So n first of all starts at 0, so 2 times 0 is 0 plus 1 equals 1, then 2 times 1 equals 2 plus 1, and then 2 times 2 equals 4 plus 1, and that's how we're getting all those odd numbers. Now, as I mentioned, guys, this can be a little complicated to understand at first, but if you keep practicing and keep experimenting with the formulas, I can promise you from personal experience they can become very handy. But that'll be it for this episode, guys. If you did like the content, please hit the like button and please consider subscribing. And if you guys have any questions, leave them down below, and I'll see you guys next week in the next 5 Minute Fridays episode.